Welcome back, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Deep Dive into the world of DNA, the code of life. If you are new here, don't forget to hit that subscribe button, ring the notification bell so you never miss a lesson. Let's jump right in. So, if you remember, when I was introducing the topic, I said that we'll be focusing on DNA and RNA. So, today I'm saying that DNA and the RNA are called or are nucleic acids, right? So each and every time they are talking about nucleic acids, they are referring to DNA and RNA, right? So you ask, what is a nucleic acid, right? So I promise to make biology easy for you guys. So to answer that question, what is a nucleic acid? Nucleic acids are big molecules that are found in every living thing, and they are the information storage system of life. So, this guy over here and this guy over here is carrying something important for life. Right. So we say that nucleic acid, DNA, and RNA, and nucleic acid are made up of building blocks or monomers, and the building blocks or monomers of DNA and RNA are called nucleotides, and each nucleotide consists of phosphate, iron, sugar portion, and nitrogenous base. In most textbooks, they are shown in this structure. You don't have to memorize the structure, but you have to be familiar with the pattern of arrangement of these nucleotides, right? So we have a phosphate, iron, a sugar, portion, and our nitrogenous bases, right? So let's focus on DNA. So DNA in full is called deoxyribonucleic acid, DNA. So if you notice that DNA is always written in capital letters, not in small letters. So meaning that if you write DNA in small letters, even if the answer is correct, so meaning that you are wrong. So if you remember on the previous slide, I said that DNA is a what? Is a nucleic acid. So, and I said that a nucleic acid is an information storage system of life. So here it gets revealed that DNA carries a genetic code, right? So I also said that DNA is made up of monomers, and the monomers of DNA and RNA are called nucleotides. So nucleotides, if you remember the structure, it was like this, right? And this was the phosphate iron, and this was the sugar portion, and this was the nitrogenous base. So the nitrogenous base, which is part of the nucleotide, is made up of different molecules, which are thymine, adenine, guanine, cytosine, right? So this part of the nucleotide will always differ. This part of the nucleotide will always differ, right? It won't be the same molecule. You will see in other structures it will be adenine, cytosine, right? Yeah. So if this side we are having, if this side we are on the left hand side, we are having adenine, and then this side means that we'll be having thymine, And if the left hand side, or it doesn't have to be the left hand side, right? Adenine could be that side and thymine could be that side, right? So if we're having guanine this side, and then meaning that on the other side we'll be having cytosine, right? It's always like that, and it's always corresponding like that, right? So these are our nitrogenous bases, right? So as we see that the DNA molecule is composed of this side and this side, left hand side and the right hand side. So what does that mean? It means that DNA is double helix, right? So now let's talk about a brief history of DNA. So DNA, in the history of DNA, Rosalind is the star, right? So she was working with this wicked scientist, which is called Wilkins, right? So Rosalind was working with Wilkins. So she discovered that the DNA is double helix, right? And this wicked scientist Wilkins, all of a sudden, he decided to dislike Rosalind and he betrays her. She took her findings and went to these guys, which is Watson and Crick, and then this guy proposed that the DNA is double helix. So the DNA is having the left hand side and the right hand side. Actually, the foundings were of Rosalind, right? So this guy go ahead and won the Nobel Gas Prize. Yeah, they were the heroes of the day. But no, they were not actually. The heroes of the day were Rosalind, but unfortunately she died and she didn't win the Nobel Gas State. But now we recognize her as the unsung hero of DNA, right? So that's the brief history of DNA, right? So the location of DNA, we found DNA in two places, right? We found it in the nucleus and we found it outside the nucleus, right? So the one that is found on the nucleus, we call it the nucleic DNA, and the ones that are found outside the DNA are called extranucleic DNA, right? So if they are asking about extranucleic DNA, they are talking about chloroplastic DNA and mitochondrial DNA. Chloroplast, if you remember from the previous grade biology, is only found in plants, and mitochondrial is found in animals also, right? So this one is only found in plants and this one is found in animals and plants, right? So, and this one can be used to track female lineage, right? It can be used to track female lineage, right? So the structure of DNA, we have mentioned that the DNA, it has two chains of nucleotides, right? Which is this chain over here and this chain over here. And if you remember, we say that the nucleotides consist of adenine, which bonds with thymine, and guanine, which bonds with cytosine, right? And if you still remember the structure, we have the phosphate ion, the sugar portion, and the nitrogenous bases, which are these guys over here. So the sugar phosphate of DNA is called deoxyribose sugar, right? And the nitrogenous bases, the adenine always pair with thymine, and cytosine always pairs with guanine. And remember, I said that adenine bonds with thymine. So we have a bonding that is happening between these molecules, and this bond over here is called a weak hydrogen bond, right? So you have to state that it is a weak hydrogen bond, right? Because hydrogen bond is one of the bonds that is strong, right? So if you don't mention that, right? If you don't mention that while in DNA replication, you will say that these things break. It wouldn't make sense, right? Because it's just happening. It requires no energy or not much energy, right? So you better say that it's weak, because biological teachers are strict, right? So DNA also have a code around protein, which is called histone, right? It protects the DNA structure, makes it firm, right? So the role of the DNA, it carries the heredity information, so which means it carries the genetic code. And we mentioned in the first series that it controls the activities that are happening within the cell, right? And also it regulates genetic function. We will talk about this. I will remind you when we are talking about it. And also it passes the genetic material that it carries, the genetic code that it carries, it get passed by DNA. So why you look like your mother, it's because of this guy over here, right? And you must note that most DNA is unused, and scientists are still searching the role of DNA. I think last year in my biology lecture, they said that 95% of DNA is crash DNA. So, not basically crash DNA, but it doesn't have function. It's non-coding DNA. Scientists are still looking for its role in the animal body or in the living things, right? Yeah. So that's the end of this lesson. See you in the next one. Bye. Oh, sorry about